What's going on, everyone? My name's Eric, and today on the channel we're going to be looking at probably the grossest guitar that I've ever had my hands on. And I honestly don't know why I have my bare hands on this guitar, because as you can see with a couple close-ups that I'm going to show right now, this guitar is absolutely just disgusting. There's dust all over this thing. The strings haven't been changed in who knows how long. The fretboard has clearly seen better days. The whole guitar has just seen better days. And there's like these weird little like brown and like red stains on the guitar, and yeah, I don't know. This is it's questionable to say the least. Yeah, this is different if like you're a touring musician. Like I know some of Jim Root's like personal guitars, because this is a Jim Root Fender Telecaster here. I know some of his personal guitars, you know, they are like pretty banged up and everything, but like for like the local like kind of owner, and I don't know if this guitar was ever gigged, but clearly this guitar was just like neglected. We're gonna like totally overhaul this thing and just get it looking and feeling and playing amazing. So what I'm gonna show you in today's video is how you can use basic guitar products, you know, to actually service your guitar and get it up to snuff and like kind of where it should be, as well as some other household products to kind of get your guitar maybe not looking as gross as this one here. So with all that being said, let's throw this made in Mexico Fender Jim Root Telecaster on the bench and get it back to life. All right, so here we have the Fender Jim Root Telecaster just on the bench here. If you have a guitar that's in this state, what you want to do is essentially just take everything off of the guitar. And if this is your first time working on a guitar that's currently like in this kind of state, what you want to do is actually make a list of the steps that you're actually going to go through to actually take the guitar apart, so then you can actually go in reverse order to bolt the guitar back up. Guitars are pretty simple for the most part in terms of like taking parts off and replacing them and things like that. But again, if this is your first time doing something like this, you want to go slow and just make sure you are making this easy for yourself down the road when you have to put the entire guitar back together. So first step in this process, let's just get the strings off the guitar and see where we're going to go from there. Next up, I'm going to take the pickguard off the guitar. The neck pickup is actually mounted on the pickguard here, so what we want to do is actually like loosen that first. That can sink right into the body. Once the neck pickup screws are out, we're then going to actually take the pickguard off. So once I'm taking off screws from a guitar, I like to kind of go in more or less like a star-shaped pattern or like a cross on all the different screws on the different point of the guitar. So I'm going to do that, and that's something I do recommend when you are unbolting or at least like bolting on new parts to a guitar that are held in by screws, just so everything sits as it should and one side isn't going to sit flatter than the other side. You also risk stripping out the screw holes that the screws are actually sitting in if you don't actually put these screws back in like kind of like in a cross pattern, like a star pattern. So let's just avoid that and like just do it properly, because you want to avoid major headaches down the road. So take your time, just hang out and do this, and yeah, that'll be kind of it. All right, let's get the pickguard off. And okay, well, the underside looks good, and if you haven't seen what a Jim Root Telecaster looks like without the pickguard, that's what it looks like. Now, since this guitar has the active EMG pickups, what you can simply do is actually just kind of like disconnect the pickups. The only reason I'm going to disconnect the pickup is just so I can actually wipe down the guitar a little bit more, and just so the pickup isn't rattling around in this cavity here, because it is not mounted right to the body on this guitar here. So I'm going to do that for both bridge and neck pickup here. All right, next up here, I want to get the volume knob off of the potentiometer that's under here. And what you can do to get this off is, if you don't have the proper tool for this, you can actually use a flathead screwdriver. Use a real tiny one here and just kind of get it under the actual volume knob here. And since the last screwdriver was a little too big, I have this really tiny jeweler screwdriver here. Just kind of turn it left and right just like this, and eventually the volume knob is going to come right out like that, and good to go. And now with the three-way pickup selector here, it looks like that's okay here. So what I'm gonna do is still just take the cap off of that. Again, this is a pretty bad representation of this guitar, but if you can get a good deal on a guitar like this and you kind of know what you're doing with cleaning guitars, like, you're gonna be in an okay spot for actually maybe saving yourself a little bit of money and learning something along the way. Last but not least, the bridge is pretty well covered in dust and looks like animal hair of some sort. So what I'm gonna do is actually just kind of take these saddles out of the bridge and then actually deep clean the actual base plate and actually these saddles as well. So real simple, you just need a screwdriver, unscrew the intonation screw from the saddle. What you wanna do, put it all back together and put it in the order that it came out from the guitar. As you might notice on this saddle here, this is the low E string here. This is gonna have a bit more wear on it rather than the high E string by comparison. So just take these out and put them in the exact order that you are taking them off of the guitar, and put them back in the same order, just so you don't run into any other headaches down the road. As you're gonna see, we have 3 mounting screws that's gonna be holding the bridge base plate right to the body. What you wanna do is just unscrew the actual screws from this and remove the bridge. And this is where a ground cable from the electronic circuit of the guitar is actually gonna come up and touch the bridge to then ground the strings, so then the whole guitar is actually grounded and you're not going to get any sort of unwanted noise. Just like what was going on with those Harley Bentons that I reviewed a couple of years ago. And in this case, EMGs don't use a ground wire, so we don't have to worry about anything like right here. But if your guitar is having some ground issues, you might actually want to check under here, and this is a really easy solution for that. And yeah, the base plate is pretty gross, so I will clean that after. But again, I want to get all the hardware off of this guitar so then I can actually wipe it down fully and then just have this guitar kind of look brand new, or at least close to being brand new for a used guitar. And of course, nothing's going to be perfect as a factory finish. But if you are in a situation like this with a guitar that you've really wanted and it's not really in the best shape, you don't need to do a ton of work to really get it up to snuff. And a lot of the stuff is what you can literally just do at home. All right, so at this point, every piece of hardware is off of the guitar body outside of the strap pins, and those seem to be holding fine, so we're just gonna kind of leave those right now. This guitar also has a satin finish, really easy to clean. So what you wanna do is actually just get yourself a microfiber cloth like here. Just gonna fold it up into more or less a square, and just so you can have an even contact point across the guitar body, and we're just gonna like lightly clean up all that grime and that gunk and all that dust. This is gonna be like the first step in actually getting rid of all the gunk and getting this guitar back to kind of a new-ish state of it in terms of appearance anyways. And already that's looking way better. The next thing you wanna do is actually use a little bit of guitar spray. This stuff here is made for actual like gloss finishes, but it does work on satin finishes as well, especially to get rid of like some of like these extra like sticky points on the guitar, or even like some of this like animal hair or whatever's on here. So essentially, just like a regular guitar here, what I'm gonna do is just kind of be mindful of where I'm spraying, not to get any of the electronics. Then I'm gonna go back over with the microfiber cloth and just kind of work it in and really try and get some of those gunks and the grimy parts out of the actual finish on this guitar here. Using any sort of like guitar spray like that just to loosen up any sort of gunk or grime with a little bit of a cloth is gonna go a real long way into restoring like an actual finish on a guitar, or at least getting a bunch of dirt off of the guitar. All right, and look at that. That is disgusting. But essentially here we have more or less a brand new guitar, and I'm gonna do a better job at actually cleaning this up and getting some of like the streaks out of this and everything like that. But yeah, you don't need a ton of crazy products to really get maybe gunk or grime out of a guitar. A lot of these guitar sprays and these guitar polishes really go a long way, and yeah, you just gotta kind of have the right cloth and a little bit of knowledge, and that can really take you far in restoring a guitar. Same here with the bridge on the guitar. You know, this just has a bunch of dust on it, and that's gonna be okay. So what I'm gonna do, take that microfiber cloth, wipe it down, and that is pretty much it. So I'm gonna clean the rest of the guitar body and the bridge in a little bit more detail, then I'll see you for the next part. And it might be a little hard to capture how dirty the saddles are on screen here, but good amount of dust on these. Simply take that microfiber cloth, wipe it down, and the interesting thing about guitar hardware is that you actually don't want to use the actual guitar spray or polish on it. So essentially just wipe it down for now, and if it is struggling to move, what you want to do is throw a little bit of that 3-in-1 oil that I've used on the channel many times. Throw it into those parts that are actually not moving so well. This 3-in-1 oil goes such a long way, so throw that in any of these adjustment points here, like right where the intonation screw sits, or where you actually adjust the action, and that's going to make these parts work way better, so you're not going to have to replace them down the road. All right, so now at this point, we're just going to put the bridge saddles back together. What I'm also going to do is put a little bit of that 3-in-1 oil onto that intonation screw right there, and if it gets on the bridge base plate, that is totally fine, because this is not going to rust out or anything like that. Screw it back in, and having a little bit of that 3-in-1 oil in this saddle here is going to actually help prevent rusting or anything like that, or any of these parts from seizing up on the inside here. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of overspray and a little bit of drippage from that 3-in-1 oil on the body and a little bit of the hardware here. That is totally fine. It's not going to damage the paint or anything like that. All you got to do is just simply wipe it up. And even on the finish itself, and if there's still some spots left over, use a little bit of that guitar spray. Just spray the area, wipe it up a little bit more, and then you are good to go. Next up here, what I want to do is actually tighten some of the hardware that's going to be staying on the guitar. So for example, we're going to be keeping the neck on the guitar, and what I want to do is just tighten the neck bolts, going in a star pattern here, so crisscrossing just like this. Again, you don't want to go just doing the left side, then the right side, or right then left. You want to have the neck sitting evenly. So if you tighten the neck bolts in like a star shape, the neck is actually going to sit very flush, and there's not going to be any sort of issues with potentially stripping out the holes that the neck screws are actually sitting in, or damaging the neck. All right, and we got the EMG pickup here. As you can see, it is just covered in dust. And essentially what you need to do, take that same microfiber cloth, or even get a new one if it's like pretty disgusting like this one. What you can do, simply wipe that cover off and look at that, it looks great. This is a plastic cover. This is really easy to clean. You don't have to worry about it oxidizing or rusting because it is plastic, so it's not like some of those nickel or metal covers. Yeah, just get a cloth, wipe it down, and you are good to go. And the nice thing about the pickup ring on this guitar is that it is plastic, so once again, take that microfiber cloth, just wipe all that dust off. Again, if you have gunk or anything on it, you can then actually spray these down with some of that same guitar cleaner, and that is gonna go a long way just to get rid of extra gunk or whatever might be sticking to that pickup ring if you want to restore it to kind of like that factory look. Look at that, brand new, just from wiping it down. Very simple and very easy to do, and it's not gonna cost you anything. So now at this point, I'm just gonna reinstall the EMG 81, very simple. The nice thing about these EMG pickups is that they have the quick connect system, and yeah, I don't know why more pickup companies just don't get on this, because look at that, it's just so easy to reinstall and reconnect the pickups. No soldering or anything like that. Like, it is just so nice like that. So real easy if you are working with EMG pickups. Bit of a different story if you have other pickups that require soldering. Otherwise, bolt it back up just as it is. And next up after this, we're gonna then move to the pick guard on this guitar. All right, so here we have the pick guard of the Jim Root Telecaster. It has a bunch of dust and like grime and gunk and probably like some dog hair or something on it. I think these like little blotches right here, that might be nicotine, so maybe the owner who had this guitar before, the new owner, was a smoker. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just hoping it's not anything that it shouldn't be that's on a guitar. So if you are in a situation like this, again, like I'm just gonna use some of this Dunlop like 65 like guitar polish, and I'm just gonna really like work at it just to get all this grime, this gunk off of it. You really want to avoid stuff like Clorox or anything like that. A lot of those products are not going to be good for plastic, and they actually might deteriorate the actual structural integrity of the plastic. So instead of doing that, just start with something easy like this guitar polish here. Once again, just cover the whole thing as best as you can. Grab a microfiber cloth and then just work at it. And look at that. Comes out right away. Not sure if there's anything we can do right now with like the yellowing of the actual pick guard. It actually looks cool, so we are going to leave it like as it is. Brand new. Again, simple problems require simple solutions. Okay, so now let's get to the neck, the headstock, and the fingerboard. As you can see, the whole fingerboard and the headstock, just like the body, are just caked in gunk. This section is going to be similar to the last section that we just finished up, and I'm just going to remove the tuners from the guitar here and the string tree. That's pretty much it, because I do want to work on these initial parts on their own and have a full surface to actually clean this fingerboard and the headstock and not have any hardware get in the way of me trying to actually clean this guitar properly. Some of these tuners might actually be drilled out for thicker guitar strings. So if that is the case for your guitar, make sure you are taking the tuners out and putting them in the exact order that you see them on the guitar, and then reinstalling them the exact same way. This is a maple neck and fingerboard on this guitar here. And the nice thing about working with maple necks and fingerboards and everything like that is that those pieces of wood are going to be sealed off. So it's not an open pore wood like ebony or rosewood, for example. So again, you can use some of this guitar cleaner right here, you know, like this Dunlop 65 or whatever you are gonna use, and then just spray it right onto the area. And you're not gonna damage the finish, which is really nice because, again, maple is sealed off from the factory. And then take a microfiber cloth, just work that guitar polish and that guitar cleaner all over the dirty areas, and then you're gonna bring that finish back to life. Flipping the headstock over, this looks pretty good here. There's a little bit of dirt on the back, so I'm just gonna spray this back here. And again, if you are worried about a factory signature or a serial number from the factory, those are put on right before the clear coat, so you don't have to worry about spraying that and then potentially wiping them off or anything like that. All right, now let's move to the fingerboard here. Now this is just an example of the rest of the fingerboard. I'm gonna show this here because obviously the first fret area on this guitar has a lot of damage and a lot of gunk on it. So again, I'm gonna use this same guitar cleaner right here, and I'm gonna spray it onto all parts of the fingerboard here. Don't worry about getting any of this cleaner on the frets. That cleaner will not ruin the frets. You're gonna be totally okay to do that. Again, real easy solution for very simple issues. I'm gonna go clean the rest of the fingerboard, and then we are going to move to actually detailing the frets, and then we're gonna move to the tuner. Now, it might be hard to see on screen, but there is a good amount of dust on the tuners. Simply microfiber cloth, wipe it all down, get all that dust off. And then what I like to do is, especially if the guitar had all this dust and this gunk on it, what we're then going to do is actually put the tuner back to where it is supposed to be, and put the top part of the tuner back together. A little bit of that 3-in-1 oil on there, just so everything is going to move and sit in there properly. A little bit of that 3-in-1 oil into the locking mechanism there, just so the actual gears that are in the back of the tuner are gonna move freely. I'm gonna then close the locking tuner up. And what I'm gonna do is simply just spin the tuner around. Doesn't matter which way it goes, as long as the actual lubricating oil is getting into all different parts of the gear there, just to make sure nothing is going to seize up over time. If you want to speed the process up, you can use one of these tuner drill bit adapters right here, put it on the tuner, and then just run the drill, and that's kind of it. Rinse and repeat for the rest of the tuners. I'm going to go do that, and then I will see you after we are done stringing the guitar up. And now it goes without saying that this guitar is strung up with strings from today's sponsor, the String Source. And if you haven't heard of the String Source guitar strings, I've talked about them many times on my channel, but essentially they are packaged as balanced tension string sets. And if you're new to balanced strings, essentially what that means is that every string on the guitar, from the very first string to the last string on your guitar, is going to be pulling the same amount of tension between every string, and every set of strings from the String Source are optimized for certain guitar tunings based on the packs that you buy. If you want to learn more about String Source guitar strings and balanced tension guitar strings, click the link below, and if you want to try a set of those String Source guitar strings, make sure you use my discount code MRTNTSS at the checkout for a bit of a discount on your next order with the String Source. Alright, and here is the Fender Jim Root Telecaster all finished up and all cleaned up and kind of just brought back to life. And just to reiterate an earlier point, like, this was done like just using basic tools, whether it was from like a hardware store or honestly just from like the local music store. Like, but look at this. This is like basically brand new from a little bit of TLC and like maybe $10 worth of parts. And yeah, you got a brand new guitar. And even if you are looking to get a guitar that's used and maybe is not in the best of shape, if you know what you're doing and if you are willing to kind of try something and maybe spend a little bit of extra money and some TLC and get it to, you know, get the guitar back to looking like this or something like that, like, you can get a really good deal on a guitar. And honestly, like, having that sense of pride and accomplishment at the end when you kind of get your guitar looking like super killer or even playing super awesome or whatever you have to do to it. And honestly, that's pretty awesome. At the end of the day, you know, you've taken some skills that you've learned and you've applied it and you have something to kind of show for it. And I think that's pretty sweet. But with all that being said, this is the Fender Jim Root Telecaster. And just like all the other Jim Root guitars I've had on the channel here, this one is no different of how sick it is, and honestly just how much I love this line of guitars here. Again, it has a lot of vintage and modern features, and I think that's what draws me so much to these guitars is because they have a sweet blend of vintage and modern. I grew up kind of in that realm with what I like in terms of guitars, either vintage or modern or a bit of both, and even my interests outside of music as well, like especially with cars and things like that. Like, I do love the vintage modern stuff, and yeah, this kind of just checks all of the boxes, and especially for what you can get these for in terms of like a used price, like, they're super solid. And you know, just running my hands up and down the fingerboard, the frets are pretty good on this guitar here. This guitar was made in 2014. So again, not too sure what's going on with some of the newer made in Mexico Fender guitars, but these older ones from like this first-hand experience here, this feels pretty good. And again, obviously just try it before you buy, just like any guitar, just to make sure it is the guitar that is right for you. Now this guitar here features a lot of the same specs and features as the other Jim Root guitars, but obviously there are some key differences which we will talk about later on. We got a mahogany body, very simple electronic layout. We got one volume, three-way pickup selector, EMG 81, EMG 60. We then have the very simple Fender hardtail bridge, very easy to use, and there's nothing really to go wrong with it, honestly. Moving up to the neck and the fingerboard, we got a maple neck with a maple fingerboard. There is another variation of this guitar that actually is finished in white and has a black pickguard and has an ebony fingerboard with the maple neck. And I'm pretty sure this one might be a little bit more rare since this one isn't in production. It seems like those are the more rare ones and they are commanding a good price on the used market, but honestly, you can't go wrong with any sort of variation that you get in these Jim Root guitars here. We got 22 jumbo nickel frets here. This guitar also has a 12-degree fretboard radius, which is a little bit different than some of the other Jim Root guitars, which have the compound 12 to 16 fretboard radius. But yeah, otherwise, this feels great. I mean, I can still play pretty quick on this, and I can set the action up pretty low. Feels great overall, and just because this guitar does not have the compound radius does not mean it is not as good as some of the other guitars in the Fender Jim Root signature line. Black dot inlays, we do have the locking Fender tuners, we got the smaller Fender headstock, and last but not least we have the upper access heel in the back here just to make for soloing a little bit easier when you're getting up higher on the fingerboard. And that's going to do it for some of the specs and the features on this guitar here, and yeah, I wish I could keep this guitar, and I wish I kind of found this guitar and kept it for myself, but it is what it is. You can't own every guitar, sadly, but yeah, just like all the other Jim Root guitars, like, they're killer, and I really have nothing negative to write home about. That's like maybe going to make me not want to buy this guitar. These guitars are super well built, they're super sick. Jim uses these in his personal like guitar rigs and everything like that, and if he's using them and touring with Slipknot around the world and he's just playing these made in Mexico Fenders, I think that says a lot because he is a world-class musician and he literally uses the tools that you can go buy at your local music store in his day-to-day work with Slipknot. And yeah, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, you know, hats off to Jim and Fender for making such a killer guitar. And with all that being said, let's hear the Fender Jim Root Telecaster with a couple isolated guitar tones. the end of the day, like, I love the Fender Jim Root signature guitar line, and it's honestly one of my favorite signature guitar lines that's literally just designed for metal. It also has a lot of classic elements, which I honestly love, as I said earlier, and you know, these guitars just check out, especially these older ones. This particular guitar has no fret issues. This is an earlier model. It was made in 2014 by comparison to some of the newer Made in Mexico Jim Root guitars or the Made in Mexico Fender guitars that are having a little bit of fret issues, but yeah, nothing really negative to write home about this guitar. Like, it feels great, sounds great. It's really chunky when it's plugged in. Now, by comparison to my USA Stratocaster, like, this guitar definitely sounds a little bit thicker, probably because there is more wood on this guitar by comparison to the actual Stratocaster, which is all routed out for the traditional Stratocaster design. That's cool, you know, whatever floats your boat, but honestly, like, if you get a good deal and find one of these used, like, these things sound really good. The only negative thing that I can think about currently on this guitar is the fact that frets 20 to 22 on the high E string and up around here, they're a little bit harder to get to, but I think that's just the inherent design of the Telecaster. But honestly, for the majority of your time, you're gonna be kind of like all over the neck, and it's gonna be very seldom that you're up here. So if that is something you can live with, I think this would be a great guitar for you. And lastly, the only thing that I can maybe say as a negative about the guitar is that the battery for the active EMG pickups is housed in the actual electronics cavity. Would be nice to see like a separate battery compartment, you know, to make changing your battery just a little bit quicker, but otherwise, that's just a small complaint, and like otherwise, this thing is sick. And again, like, I wish I was keeping this guitar, but I can't keep every guitar that I work on, and obviously that's just like how it goes. But if this is something that you are specifically looking for, like, go out and grab one. I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised, especially if you get a really good deal on the used market for one of these guitars. And with all that being said, that's gonna do it for today's video on the restoration of this Made in Mexico Jim Root Telecaster here. If you learned something new and you like different parts of this video, let me know in the comments below, because I will always engage with you all on these particular guitars that I work on here. If you like this video, make sure you leave a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, I have tons more videos like this, restoring guitars and doing gear demos and other guitar related topics as well. So make sure you consider subscribing if you like what I do. And if you are a returning subscriber, make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video that I upload. Thanks for checking this out, and I will see you next time.